What's going on, YouTube? We are back with episode 12, where I'm about to start my prepping series, prepping a 2016 Chevy Corvette. All right, so as you can see, the middle part is taped up. That's because it's carbon fiber, so I'm going to prep the outside first, and then you'll see that I'm going to be taping it up and laying some fine line down. All right, so then I got a fender, I got two fenders, a brand new bumper, a brand new hood with carbon fiber in the middle, and then I have two doors that I'm going to be painting on the actual car itself. All right, so what I like to do first is I start off with the body work. Um, and so I attack the primer with 400 grit, and then I come back over everything, including the surrounding areas, with 600 grit. Now, I sped this episode up a little bit more just because it's very lengthy. It's an hour and 3 minutes, but I'm going through and showing y'all very thoroughly my process on how I get a car ready for paint. Now, this is going to be the first of many. I'm probably going to have the next 5 episodes be solely dedicated to getting a car or getting cars ready for paint, showing you the prepping process, the taping process, and the cleaning process. So all in all, if it looks like I'm moving super fast, it's only because I sped the episode up a little bit more. So the sander I'm using is made by Snap-on. It is a 6-inch sander, and it has a foam pad on it that allows the sandpaper to stick to it. That comes separately. And basically, as you see me sanding, like I said, when I first start out, I like to start with the bodywork first, the primed areas, and then I move on to the areas that are not primed. And my goal every time I'm sanding something, no matter if I'm going to have to paint the whole thing or not, I don't like to burn through the paint at all. You have to remember that the DA is spinning, and anytime something is spinning, it's generating heat. And anytime something is generating heat and you keep it in one area or on the edge, then it's going to burn through the paint. And what I mean by burn through is burning through that top layer of clear. And a lot of times, if you're not going to have color in a certain area, you don't want to burn through because then it makes your job 10 times more harder. Now, I want to shed some light on what I just did. After I got done with the primer, I took some sandpaper and I made sure that all of my edges were smooth. Now that's very important because rule of thumb, you have to keep in mind that whatever we're doing or whatever you're doing to the car, it needs to look new to the customer. All right. Now that's if you can help it. A lot of cases, there are times where you're not going to have color in a certain area. So instead of blowing paint and taking the risk of, your paint not matching, you might want to just grab a touch-up pen and put some paint on it, touch up the edge, and then clear over it. That will probably look better than just having the metal be exposed or however it looks. You know what I mean? So it's all about just taking the extra initiative to make whatever you doing to the car look good. All right, so you will find that with some cars and some parts, they're a little harder to sand. So it just comes with experience over time. Like certain parts from certain companies get sanded differently. Some you can sand, some bumpers you can sand with a DA. Some you have to do by hand because you'll put DA marks in the orbital marks in the bumper that you're trying to prep. So to alleviate that, you have to do it by hand. Um, so for example, I think it's the I think it's the Chevy bumpers. When they come in, you have to sand by hand with a Scotch Brite, and then any imperfections you have to sand very lightly with some 800 or 600 wet, or dry very lightly, and then you have to go over everything finally with your Scotch Brite. So you just have to pay attention to what you can do and what you can't do with some of these parts. Like with this fender right here, it comes from GM, and it's really hard to sand. So as I'm guiding my DA, I'm having to just move it a little bit to kind of finesse it in a way to where I can get the scratch that I want on this fender to make everything, smooth. Because it's all in your prep how your paint is going to turn out. So if I have any imperfections right now, I need to go ahead and take care of them before I enter the booth. Because mainly as a painter, I do not like sanding in the booth if I can help it. Now, if I do have to sand in the booth, and let me explain why I don't like sanding in the booth. The reason why I don't like sanding in the booth, as you may know, if it's going to create dust. You know what I mean? That's going to create trash in my paint. And my main goal is to get the cleanest job possible. So if I have a situation to where I have to sand something in the booth or sand any imperfections out of any parts or any panels, what I do is I use some type of solution. So I might use a DX330, which is a wax and grease remover, or I might use a little glass cleaner um, on on a piece of 600 or 800. Now, if I can help it, like I said, I would rather not sand or have to sand in the booth. So that's where the routine comes in. Um, I have a routine that I follow, like I stated with my painting in previous episodes. I have a routine that I follow when I prep as well, and I follow that routine. And for the most part, I get the same results every single time. Now, occasionally, if something is having, if there's a rush on something, then sometimes things get missed. But then, when I'm going over my final cleaning process in the booth, that's usually when I catch it. So that's a part of my routine as well. So just like I'm sanding this fender, I started at the top, and then I moved to the middle of the top where those other body lines are, and then as you can see, I'm continuing to move on down. The reason why I sand like that is to make sure that everything on this fender would be sanded and has a scratch to it. Because basically what I'm trying to do, I'm focusing on taking the top layer off, but I want it to be smooth because, like I stated before, how my prep looks, how I prep this fender determines how my sealer is going to look. How my sealer is looking determines how my base is going to look. How my base looks determines how my clear is going to look. So it's all in your prepping. So if I had to give anybody advice on, just starting out in this industry, I would say to have a routine, develop some type of routine that you follow, and then, continue to strengthen your routine, whether you're watching videos, whether you're watching somebody that's been doing it for 20 plus years. Take and add things from, you know, other people that can strengthen your routine. So for me, I'm still learning and I will continue to learn because my perspective is the day you stop learning is the day you start losing. So no matter if I've been doing it for 20 years, it's always going to be something for me to learn. So have a routine, develop a routine, and strengthen your routine as much as you possibly can. And as long as you're following that, you'll get the same results every single time. Now, in this industry, it's very, very important that you stay, brushed up on everything that's going on because things are always changing. There's always new products that are coming out and things like that. So, in other words, stay locked in to what's going on with the products that you're using. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention is a word of advice that I would give anybody that's starting out in this industry is to pay attention to not only what you're doing, but pay attention to why you're doing it. You know what I mean? So with this bumper right here, I know that Chevy bumpers, a lot of times when they come in, if you use a DA orbital sander on it, then it will leave little springs from the DA and from the sandpaper in the bumper. And so I know from experience to sand this bumper by hand. So I got a Scotch Brite, I got a piece of sandpaper, 600 sandpaper on it, and I'm going through and making sure everything is scuffed. Now, being that I'm putting a scratch on this bumper, I'm going to come back and my final steps to make sure everything is smooth is going to be using just a Scotch Brite. Now, I'm using 600 because it has a lot of imperfections in it. A lot of times with the e-coats that they spray on these brand new parts, they have trash just like, just as well as, us painters when we spray in the booth. So like I said, I want it to look new to the customer, and I'm trying to get the cleanest possible job that I can get out of this booth load. And in order to do that, I have to make sure that I take out any imperfections that I see. And so, attention to detail is key. That's another thing. Attention to detail. You got to pay attention to detail. It'll take you a long way in this industry. It'll save you a lot of money. It'll save the company money on materials from having to respray something. So always make sure you pay attention to detail as well. So as I'm sanding, you'll see that I run my hand over the area just to make sure that the imperfections that I saw is no longer there. And then I'll continue on to move on with the process. Now, as I prep, like I said, I start with the body work first. Then I go ahead and sand everything completely. So I started with that fender with the body work. Then I sanded the rest of it. Then I moved to the brand new fender. Then I moved to the bumper. Now I'm getting to the hood. I'm going to sand the hood in sections as well. And then once everything is sanded, my final step in my process is, running Scotch-Brite over everything that I sanded. So I'm gonna go from the bumper or the fender to the other fender to the bumper, and then my last thing is going to be the hood. And once I get all of these sanded properly, get them in the booth, and then I'm going to pull the car in and sand the two doors and tape those up as well. All right, so as you can see, the middle of this hood is taped up. The reason why is because it's carbon fiber. So I don't want that carbon fiber to be exposed right now as I'm sanding the surrounding areas. So I'm going to go ahead and get this done first. Then I will peel that tape from the middle of it. And then I will be sanding the middle part with 600 grit sandpaper, Scotch-Brite in all the edges. And then I will be taping it up, laying paper, then taping it up, and then laying down my fine line on each side where it ends. All right, so the same process that I used on my fender with the primer at the top and worked my way down is the same that I'm using on this hood. I started at the front of the hood and then worked my way to the side, and now I'm on the side of the hood. When you sand like this and you sand in sections, it just gives you, you know, more time to focus on the specific area and taking out any imperfections that need to be taken out so you can get a smoother finish. All right. So, final step in the process of these parts is using a Scotch Brite and making sure I scuff every inch of everything that I'm spraying, all the edges, because like I stated before, edges are very, very important. You don't want your paint peeling later on. You don't know how the customer's going to take care of their car, and you need everything to be solid. So, making sure your edges are scuffed, Very, very important process. Now, I hope y'all can't hear the conversation that's going on in the background. I tried to turn the video down as much as I possibly could, but they were having a whole conversation in my episode about making jambalaya. You know what I mean? I started to look over there and be like, yo, like what's going on now? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know whether to feel hungry and need to go, make some jambalaya, or I need to tell y'all to, hey, take the conversation to the lunchroom or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, they had a whole conversation while I was making this YouTube episode about making jambalaya. So, but back to your regular schedule program. Like I said, I'm making sure that everything is scuffed. And no, I'm not sanding this fast. It's just that I sped this episode, well, this particular part of the video up a little bit more because I try to condense this episode down as much as I possibly could. But I also wanted to show the full process as well. So I'm not sanding super, super fast like you see me. It's just that I sped it up. All right, so here's another prime example of what I mean by paying attention to detail. A lot of times when these brand new bumpers come in, they have a little bit of an outline around them. It's just how they were cut. So if I was to go ahead and paint this, it wouldn't look good at all. It would look like, it just needs to be trimmed. And so if, like I said, if I was to go ahead and paint it and trimmed it afterwards, there would be no paint there. So you have to do it before you paint it. So as you see, I'm going through right now with the razor blade, and look at the outline that I'm cutting off. That's how much of an outline that it has. So it's very, very important. Pay attention to detail. So like I stated before, I'm just going through, making sure everything is scuffed. And then I have to peel that tape. And being that that line is built up so much with that E-coat that they put on this fiberglass hood, I'm going to go ahead and take my DA and just try to sand it down a little bit more than what it already is, so everything can lay out smooth. After I get done scuffing right here, I'm gonna have to flip this over and go ahead and start sanding underneath the hood, because that's very important as well. I have to put some type of scratch to it so I can give my sealer and my base something to bite to. After that, I got to peel this tape off the middle of the hood where the carbon fiber goes, and sand that down, put paper, tape it up, and then lay down my fine line. Now, it's very, very important to make sure that everything is scuffed underneath this hood, because it's just as important as the top of the hood. And a lot of times, even if you do not scuff it that well, when you try to put some sealer on it, the sealer doesn't have anything to stick to, so it'll look like it's reacting. So you always have to put a scuff underneath the hood, just like you did on the top. So right now I'm taking a camera reading. With this particular camera, it takes 5 different shots of it. So when I load it up in the system, it's going to give me the pictures of the car, and then versus the variants that it chooses that I can blend out. All right. So a lot of times what I do, like if this was silver, being that this is black, I don't have to worry about it as much. But if this was like a silver car or a candy or a pearl, what I would do if I was doing the same repair, which is the 2 fenders, the brand new bumper, brand new hood, what I would do is buff the door on this side, buff the door on that side, and then go ahead and take camera readings of both doors and then compare and contrast that way. so I got everything sanded with 600. Now I'm going over my edges with a Scotch-Brite. Your edges on your blend panels are just as important as they are on your brand new parts. The reason why is because the same thing that can happen to your brand new parts, your paint will start peeling, and also when you're in the booth trying to spray it, it will not have anything to bite to if it doesn't have a little bit of a scratch to it. So you always want to make sure that you are scuffing everything properly. For me, I like to do it last. That way, as I'm scuffing, I can actually look at everything that I'm scuffing and look at the panel to see if I missed any imperfections in the panel or within the panel. And so I can go ahead and address that before I get it in the booth. Now, when you're scuffing, you have to make sure that you are very, very careful in the areas that you're not going to be putting paint. So right here, this is the rear of the door. I do not want to burn through it all because that means I would have to put paint in those areas. It's okay if I burn the front, but what I like to do is practice not burning at all. So even though I could have burnt in the front of that door, I didn't, just because I just try to use that as practice to not burn anything at all. Now, occasionally burn throughs happen. And what I mean burn throughs, meaning burning through the first 2 layers of the clear down to the color. That's a cause for having to blow color on it every single time, because then it's an automatic respray if you just clear over it. So rule of thumb, I sand all the flat areas first on my blend panels with 600 or 800, whatever one that I have at the moment or at that time. And then I go over everything else with a Scotch-Brite, and I'm very easy with my edges. So although the edges need to be scuffed, you have to make sure that you are very careful not burning through. All right, so what you see me doing right now is going through and outlining my doors with my tape. I'm going to be doing the same thing to the other side as well, the passenger side. And basically, I'm going to be moving the car or driving the car inside of the paint booth. And I'm going to be spreading plastic over the whole entire car and only cutting out the parts that I'm going to be blending. So in this case, I'm going to be blending both doors. So there's going to be plastic over the whole car. I'm going to take a razor blade and very carefully cut out the outline of the doors. And then I'm going to be taping the plastic to the tape. All right, so now I got everything in the booth. I got my plastic over my car. I have my 2 doors and I'm going to be blending. I have those cut out carefully. So now it's time to tape everything down. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think I painted this one on TikTok Live. So being that this was my prepping series, I did not do an episode on painting this, but I do show the finished results at the end of this episode. So stay tuned. Now, one thing about when you cut out the plastic and you start laying down your tape around whatever you cut out, you have to make sure that everything is properly taped, because if it's not, then if even if there's a little bitty tight space to where something can blow in overspray, it will get in that area and end up getting overspray. You end up getting overspray on the car itself. So you always want to make sure that everything is properly pressed down as you're taping, and you don't want to tape your plastic so close to the edge. You want to have it a little bit further back. That way, your actual tape that you laying down. I usually like to go halfway, so I split the tape in half, and that's where I usually have the plastic when I'm taping up my blend panels. Because if you tape too close, then you're not giving the tape enough room to actually stay down. So then when you start cleaning, and then when you start blowing any air on the actual car itself, then the tape's going to come up. And then you run the risk of getting overspray in places that you do not want it to get. That's why you put plastic over the whole entire car to prevent that. All right, so with my carbon roof right here, um, I have to clean this whole entire roof off first before I start doing anything to it. Of course, I'm trying to get the cleanest job as possible, and plus, all I'm going to be laying on the inside of this hood where the carbon is 490 T490, basically giving my clear something to bite to. So I want to go ahead and clean this whole entire hood because I want to get the cleanest job as possible. So in order to do that, I got to go ahead and clean right now before I lay the paper down, because once I have the whole hood based, it's sealed, based, and ready for clear. When it's ready for clear, I'm gonna be pulling the paper, pulling the fine line, and then I will be laying down a coat of 490, which is clear base coat, in the middle where the carbon fiber is, and basically that's just gonna give my clear something to bite to, and then I'm gonna be clearing the whole hood. All right, so as I previously stated, I never like sanding in the booth, but if I am going to sand in the booth, I have to use some type of solution. That way, I keep the dust to a bare minimum, right? In this particular case, I seen it looked like watermarks on the middle of this hood where the carbon fiber is. So I just tried to take a Scotch Brite with some glass cleaner and try to see if I can try to sand it out, and it did not come out. So that let me know that it was beyond my control. But I just wanted to make sure. So as you can see, I'm not going all the way up to the line, and the reason for that is because I'm going to be laying down fine line. So you never want to go all the way up to the line. You want to give yourself some room. That way, when you lay that fine line, it just makes things easier to peel. So after I do this, I'm going to grab me some paper, cover up the carbon fiber, and then tape the paper to the tape, and then go ahead and lay down my fine line. Now with this fine line, I have to be very, very careful. I have to watch very, very carefully where I'm placing this fine line. I need to be placing it straight directly on the black. I can't go over, I can't be too far back because then I'm going to have two lines. So I need to be very, very precise as I'm laying this down. Because when I'm spraying the black on the hood, I do not need any black to be getting on the carbon fiber. Also, when you're laying down the fine line, not only do you need to be very, very precise, you have to give yourself a little bit of room with the fine line to where you can grab it and then you can start pulling it. What I usually like to do is I give myself like maybe a couple of centimeters just of the fine line just so I could have that to go ahead and pull it. But I usually pull it as I lay it down, pull it in the opposite direction. That way, when I need to pull it, I can just grab it and then pull it. And it's very easy. So as you can see, I'm cutting it off, but I tucked it under. I'm not cutting it off exactly where I stopped. I'm cutting it up. I cut it off and then I placed it a little bit under. And then that way it gives me a little bit of leeway to where I can, I won't have a hard time trying to find it and pull it. After you lay the fine line down, then you have to tape it down because it has glue underneath it and it's designed to stick. But at the same time, I'm in a controlled environment. There's heat. So I'm, whatever temperature I'm basing at, it could potentially heat up that tape in that fine line and then cause it to come up a little bit. So that's something that you want to make sure that you keep in mind when you lay fine line. Also, when you lay fine line, you don't want to pull it. You just want to lay it down because when you pull it, it creates tension, and then the tension will also make it come up as well. So that's why I lay another piece of tape on top of the fine line just to give it a little bit more reinforcement to prevent it from coming up. All right, so that concludes this episode. Right now, I'd like to take the time to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, hitting that like button. If you found something helpful, please leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. But until next time, stay humble, keep going, all gas, no brakes.